What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple. If you're looking to create more in your life, and if you want more of anything, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. So I'm excited you're here, and I'll see you guys on the inside. Alrighty, Patrick, last time we talked, you had one book. Now you have two books. And I was just curious, which one was harder to write?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably the first one, just because it was the first one and there were so many unknowns and wrangling down the process. So I think from a challenge standpoint, that was very unique. The process itself was very similar because you really have to, when you're writing a book, you can't just start writing a book. You have to think about, what problem are you solving? Who is it for? What will it do for them? And are you really solving a problem? So I was fortunate. My first book came out focused on sales and differentiation and the strategy of being better at sales and doing it through the client's eyes. And then the natural progression and the whole idea of leadership and differentiation and leadership and doing it through the employee's eyes and being a better leader. So one kind of led to the other, and the thought process was very dynamic. And so I kind of kept that process going. But I think the biggest challenge was the first one and just starting that.
Yeah, escape velocity, right? Just from zero to something. Well, let's start with Sell the Difference. So the two books are Sell the Difference and Create the Difference. Mm-hmm. And Sell the Difference, the ultimate guide to increase sales, profits, and customer satisfaction. A couple of the things that were really interesting to me, and I would love your perspective to really go deeper on this. You talked about the three-dimensional strategy and just really how to build that and the components of that, competition, problems, account, and solutions. So could you help people understand what that looks like and some of the problems that helps solve?
Yeah. And I use that as an acronym quite often, CAPS, C-A-P-S. So in this particular case, because most everything comes down to an issue with strategy. We don't normally have a problem being tactical. And many times people get very tactical and they think they're being strategic. Sales are down, have a sales contest. Sales are down, have a newsletter, have more meetings. That's all tactical things. That's not strategic. So I wanted to break down not just how to be better at sales, but how to be better for your clients. Your clients will always determine the value of what you offer. So the way to do that is you obviously have to go to their side of the table, look at things from their perspective, which is easy to say. Oh, Kevin's my buyer. Kevin works at this company. I could describe everything around Kevin, but I can't describe what's in Kevin's head and what makes him tick and what are his hot buttons. What is he like? So as a salesperson, what you can do is take a look at the things that you do know and the things you don't know, the things that you do have to offer and the things that you don't have to offer, the things that you do have in place at Kevin's company and the things you don't have and would like to have in place. And so I break those into some quadrants, and there's some really nice handouts that come with the audiobooks and then also with the hardcover. And in this particular case, it breaks it into 4 quadrants: competition, account, problems, and solutions. And it's a really simple way, and you can follow this path for almost anything you're trying to be more strategic on and you don't realize you're being more tactical on. And it really breaks it into asking questions around who, what, where, when, why, and how. So in an example of your competition, Kevin is doing business with XYZ company, not my company. Well, who is he doing business with? Who does he buy from? Who calls on him? Lots of who questions. What does he get from them? Why does he get it from them? What locations? Where does he have that solution in place? Why is he talking to me if he's got this current supplier, right? So those types of questions. So if you're perfectly happy, why are you meeting with me? If I've identified a problem, why does it still exist? Why am I first uncovering this? So it's questions around, not saying my competition is a bad choice for you, but it gets me strategic. And I look at information that I do know and information that I don't know, and both are equally valuable. Actually, sometimes what you don't know is more valuable than what you do know. So salespeople, quite often, when I walk them through this exercise, want to have the answer to everything. And some of it's speculation and some of it's fact. And so we have to boil down what's fact, what isn't. We do the same thing with the account itself. Who do I call on at the account? Maybe Kevin is a junior buyer, and I really need to be calling at the senior level. So who am I spending my time with? Who else could I be spending my time with? Why am I calling Kevin? Because Kevin takes an appointment every time I call him. because my manager is riding with me today and I know Kevin will see me. That isn't necessarily the reason to go meet with Kevin. So we go through who, what, when, where, why, and how. We break it into the competition that we're faced with, the account itself, the problems that you're faced with, which is a really important area, and the solutions that maybe I don't know about today. I don't come in with an idea. I've got a canned solution for you. And you don't know you even have a problem. So you might not agree that it's a solution until I uncover this information. And when I've answered these questions, and this in a real life situation should be something you're doing on a regular basis, looking at your most important accounts, the most ideal places you should do business, and you should be building this. And it should be something you don't have a lot more information than you do have. And as you're going through and as you're asking these questions, the most powerful thing you can do when you think you know everything is just add the word else. Who else, what else, where else, when else, why else? And that will lead you to areas that you don't know and don't have. And those are really sometimes the biggest chunks of gold you could ever walk upon. So that's kind of the strategy behind that. And it's to do it from the perspective of the client. Why am I meeting with Pat Kagan today? I have a supplier. Why did Pat Kagan find this solution? Why did he even say that this is a problem? Why did Pat go find my actual cost when my current supplier didn't? That's what the client will start asking themselves. You're trying to change the dynamic from why should I do business with you, Patrick, to why haven't I been doing business with you all along, Patrick? And that takes some time.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I mean, obviously questions are crucial to discovery, but that's curiosity is the first step to motivation too, because we have a question we don't have an answer to. And a lot of times in my experience, like whether it's me or somebody else, a client, it's like, we don't know what we need. We don't even know how to frame up the problem to tell you what the problem is. And part of our collaboration is you not like telling me what I want, but helping me discover what it is I want to create, because that gives me insight. And if I see it from within, I'm much more likely to move whichever way you're looking to influence me towards.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because curiosity is not an interrogation of, it's not a series of questions. Curiosity is rooted in the feelings of empathy. I feel for you. I felt your pain before. That leads me to questions about your pain that in the busy day of buying and selling and transactions and running my business, I have to stop and answer some tough questions. I don't want to. I would rather ignore the problem than face the cost of that problem or the cost of that problem continuing. So when I say, look, Kevin, I've been in your spot, I feel your pain. Other customers of mine have felt this. So let me ask you about this. You might say, that's interesting, Pat. Why would you ask that? That's interesting, Pat. I've never been asked that question before. When I hear that, I know I have their attention. And my challenge then is not to have an answer, but to continue listening to understand. That's where curiosity is rooted. It lives in a place called empathetic feelings. And that's just, I've felt your pain before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's really the questions that you're able to ask that are going to help you make that chasm between knowing and understanding, which is different. Like I know a lot of things, but I understand very few. And so I want to understand because I don't want to make assumptions and then we're disconnected and I'm telling you what what you need that you don't need. And so just curious, you've worked with a lot of salespeople and I've spent a lot of time in sales roles too. And what are some of the common mistakes that you see people making when they're trying to sell? And what are some of the really often ignored simple solutions to those mistakes?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I see, you probably see it too, is, and I don't know that it's necessarily the salesperson's problem. I think companies have gotten away from really good training. Onboarding seems to be a thing of the past. Sales training, traditional sales training, sometimes falls by the wayside. So we end up learning from model behavior. Sometimes the person that's modeling is doing things absolutely incorrect. Sometimes they're bringing us to their best client and they skip steps because they know each other so well. So one of the big things that jumps out to me is I see a lot of salespeople neglecting the benefit statement. They'll say feature, 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 and they expect the client to go, oh, that benefits me this way. So here's the easiest fix is if you don't find yourself saying what this means to you is, or what this does for you is, or what this solves for you is, if you're not saying that at the end of something you're talking to them about, you're probably talking about features that you think are really beneficial. And that will lead you to nowhere. And everybody can talk about that. I could say, Kevin wears glasses. Kevin has short hair. Kevin is a coach. He's a professional coach. I could say Kevin's been doing this for 14 years or 25 years. Those are features. It's like tactics versus strategy. But when I say Kevin's been doing this for 14 years, what that means to you is he's seen every type of political environment and economic swing, and he knows how to navigate businesses through both ups and downs, and he can do the same for you. That's a little bit more of a benefit statement. And so I see people neglect that.
Yeah, and I think that right there, that's how you tie it down, right? Because not everybody's able to do the math, so to speak, in their head, especially in the middle of a conversation. And, when you're looking to create and, they're on that line between creation and reaction. And like, I'll even use that with myself. Like, it's like thinking about like, all right, I'm going to go to the gym today. Like when I'm, sometimes I got to talk myself into it. Right. And like my little tie down statement is like, which means like, I'll feel better and I won't regret it later. And like helping myself understand the why behind what I'm doing is so paramount to success.
Yeah.
And use that word model. I'd love to transition towards the leadership book. And by the way, you guys, I want to make sure everybody knows where they can go to buy these books. You want to share your website, which is the place where they're going to be available?
Yeah. So they can get hardcover or audiobook. Just go to pksolutionsgroup.com and both are available there. The audiobooks, they're in like 45 different audio retailers. So you have your choice. You might already have a subscription service or a service you prefer. And then the audiobooks the hardcover books go through the fulfillment house and they'll be shipped out to you directly.
Thank you for doing that. So the leadership book is Create the Difference, which is a leader's guide to strategy, growth, and hiring. And you talked about model, having models, like our parents were models for us, the people that lead in front of us. I had a leader once, one of the first leadership position I had, my leader, quote unquote, right? He was not a great leader. He just had a leadership position, but he didn't have the action of leadership because he screamed at people and, these profanity laced tirades. And nobody felt empowered. Nobody felt safe. And so that was the model though. And like I was early 20s. And I remember when I would want people to do things, I'd be like, hey, I don't want to mention his name, just protect his identity, but let's say his name is Bill. I'm like, hey, Bill's going to be here later. If you don't do this, like you're up first. And then like people would be like, okay, like motivated by fear. And that's not motivation, right? That's just a terrible model to follow. And thankfully I've learned to do much better. But, could you start with that piece, kind of the modeling, the behavior we want to see?
Yeah, because you talk about really two important distinctions, leadership versus management. I look at management as a process. I look at leadership as people. And I always say to folks that leadership is not a title, nor is it an entitlement. It's a privilege. And so leadership is the ability to, yes, motivate, but motivate makes people stand up. Like you said, you want to go to the gym. Okay, so you got out of bed. Momentum is what you're really after as a leader. That keeps people going. So you go to the gym, that's momentum. You go each week, that's even more momentum. We'll translate that to business. So, you remember the bosses and the leaders that made the biggest impact on you in a positive way. And you also remember, like you just recounted, the biggest negative. And you never think you're the negative person. But leaders themselves have to take a look at, every leader has their capacity. They're full, right? They're all full up, and then they're no longer effective. They no longer get the same results. You have to continually go to continuing education and seminars and podcasts and books and thought leaders. You have to do that as a leader more often than your people, because where you go as the leader, so goes the company. So if you are not always improving, there's no way you can expect your team to get better. You're going to have flat results, negative results, going out of business, that type of thing. So I think that, leaders get wrapped around the axle a little bit with the idea of, I need to hold everybody accountable. And, they think of it, like you said, like kind of a punishment. And I don't look at it that way. So first of all, I like to involve the team. Here's what's important to our company. I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but you're all at the front line. So this is what I say is important, but here's why it's important to you. If I don't have that conversation, here's why it's important to you, then I'm some person in some corner office saying, I want this done. I might as well create a mission statement rather than creating a mission. So I need to say, here's why it's important to you, but how do we get there? That's all up to you all. Can we get there? Is it realistic? Can we, how would we know we're doing the right things along the way? Because we're not going to get there in one day. As a matter of fact, we might not get there in 1 year. So how will we know along the way that we're kind of succeeding? That's called KPIs. We know along the way we're getting there, and my team is building those. And so accountability to me is simply measuring a result. And I believe you get exactly what you measure. So many leaders measure the wrong things. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. So when you are measuring the output, there's going to be people who exceed what you expect. There's going to be people who meet what you expect. And there's going to be people who fall below. So accountability is the discussion of your output. If you've exceeded, then you did a good job. I praise you. That's accountability. Most people think, oh no, accountability is only when they're not performing. No, that's a negative conversation. That's you didn't meet my expectations. So you need to either raise your performance or I need to lower my expectations. And I'm not going to lower my expectations. So you got to raise your performance, right? That's that conversation. Praise publicly and discuss poor performance privately. Be specific, be timely. If you truly want people to change their performance, tell them right after their performance. Don't wait till the end of the year to have a performance review that nobody can affect anything. If somebody doesn't perform well and you let them know why, hey, you didn't sum things up with benefit statements. I'm going to model that for you in the next meeting. I want you to see what I say. Pay attention to this benefit statement when I say what this means to you is. And the person says, wow, okay. I get to now watch you do it. So I model what I expect. Then I give it back to them. Then they do it. Then I praise them. That's immediate. That's important. And then have a culture where the person says, I don't learn from watching. I learn from doing. Have them give input to you. You talk too fast, Pat. I don't remember what you said. Oh, okay. Let me slow down. The give and take of feedback, the performance review creates a culture of I'm safe. I'm cared about as an employee. And as a leader, I got people that they're going to remember me as the good influence. They're going to do anything they can. They won't leave me. So that's what I look at with accountability. And I think that sometimes people get put in charge of situations, process, departments, because they've been there a long time. It doesn't mean they're a good leader. And so the funny story I had for you with measurement, I worked at a company. Actually, I turned down the consulting opportunity. They said sales are down, which they were correct. Sales were down. They put in place a program to track phone calls. Phone calls was the measurement of success. Salespeople who were doing what I call call avoidance, avoiding seeing people, were coming in early, staying late and calling people on the phone in off hours, avoiding talking to people, but reaching their call objective on the number of calls they should make each day. So phone calls were up, sales presentations were down. They didn't measure the right thing. They got a lot more phone calls and they couldn't figure out why their sales were so down. And the culture was just backwards. So I'm like, well, you're measuring phone calls. They're going to find a way to make phone calls for you. But what you want to measure are some other things.
Yeah, so when it comes to KPIs, which key performance indicators, as everyone knows, how do you help people identify the appropriate things to measure? Because that was a great story. And I don't want to be busy. I want to be productive. And so How do you help people create these productive KPIs?
Yeah, I love that question because I'm not a big fan of process for the sake of process. There are processes you have to stick to. It's kind of like the formula for success. But I'm not a big fan of manufacturing more process to have a full calendar. So, there's KPIs and there's OKRs. Okay, KPIs are the key performance indicators. It means we're doing the right things along the way to get to this greater goal. The greater goal, the OKR, objective and key result, right? So when I was in the military, an OKR, go take that hill. That's the OKR. The KPI, move 6 feet and hit the dirt. Okay, move 6 feet and fire 3 shots. That's the KPI. If you've done that, you move 6 feet at a time, you're going to eventually go a mile and get to the top of that hill. So that's a distinction with the military. In business, same thing. Are you looking for more phone calls? No. So we have to have discussions around what is it you want? So a lot of people start with, well, here's what we do, and we do this, and we do that, and that's the wrong conversation. That means we're going nowhere. What you did got you to this problem. Let's agree with that. And if that's the case, let's have a brand new discussion. Matter of fact, let's involve the team because they're at the front line. They can probably tell you more things that are obstacles than you know in your corner office. So now let's say, you say we want to have a 30% increase in sales. Let's talk to the team about what they hear, who, what, when, where, why, and how with the competitive marketplace. Who, what, when, where, why, and how in the account we're calling on. Are we spending time with our ideal clients, or are we spending time with people who will see us because our boss is riding with us that day? So most of the time we spend our time with the wrong people, asking for the wrong things without benefits, with no training, and that's what they call drinking from the fire hose. And nobody can do that. Yeah. So we have this whole circle of things, and that's why there's such a need for people like you and me who come in objectively and say, listen, I can't fix my own problems, but I can fix yours because it's hard to read the label from inside the box. I can see what you have going on, and I can tell you, you may not like hearing it, but it probably will fix what you have going on if you're ready and you're willing and you're able. Leaders have a hard time understanding that leadership, while it's the most important group to continue their education, tend to believe that because they're good at business, because they're a leader, that they're all done. And that just isn't the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. And that's one of the points that I repeatedly keep out in front of myself and the people I work with. Like, there's no stay the same. It's either progression or regression. And if you stop moving forward, you're not going to be in the same place. The world's going to continue to change and revolve around you. It's just not revolving around you the way you think it is. And you're getting outdated. And that's like personal inflation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that actually ties up pretty good with another topic that you discuss and create the difference about optimizing leadership strength. And, you know, I think being authentic to our gifts and talents is where we're going to create our greatest work. But, you know, in this world of like, look at me, it's easy to get out of alignment with who we actually are and what we're really good at. And so how do you really help leaders understand, you know, what they can do to create the biggest impact? Because, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time on things that provide little impact, but take a lot of energy. And
yeah, well, and it goes back to what you just said about move forward or, you know, and keep moving. And you think about somebody walking on a tightrope, which is really what leading a business is. If you're not moving forward, then you're standing still on a tightrope and you're trying to keep balance and you're going to fall. But if you move, that balance is dispersed in the movement and in the balance, and you actually keep balance easier. So keeping moving is a good thing. So, you know, I think it's a really easy thing to look at the vice president of this or the director of that or the executive VP of this, and that title makes you believe these folks are the thing. They're at the top of the game. But everybody has their own strengths. And so my premise is that when you spend your time in what you're strong at, your strengths, which I call your sweet spot, you're happiest. So therefore, a happy leader is an effective leader. So if, Kevin, if you said, I am phenomenal at speaking to groups of people, and I said to you, I've got a role for you, you're going to spend, it's an 8-hour day. I'm going to have you spend about 6 hours speaking to people. I'm going to pay you for that. You're going to be like, holy cow, I don't have to do any acquisition or cold calling, or I don't have to do any billing, or I get to just speak to people. Yeah. And you get to pick the topic you like, and you get to be as creative as you want. And I'm going to give you a team of people that are going to support that. You're going to be like, holy cow, this is great. I'm going to say, Kevin, I still want you to, though, you know, you have to keep an eye on the accounts receivables, the billings. And you say, I don't enjoy that so much. Okay. So my thinking is delegation is not dumping. You don't just dump that on somebody. You say, we do a strength analysis. I think you do one too. And I rate people in 4 categories to start, 4 major categories. And I rate you on as a 1 to a 10. If you rate in a 7 to a 10, that's a sweet spot. That's where you want to spend your time. So the more honest you are with this self-analysis of your strengths, the more properly we can place you into what you enjoy. So you say, I don't like accounting. I don't want to follow up with people. I don't like bill collecting, whatever. But there's somebody who enjoys that process, the accountability of it all, I want you to pay, we provided these services, whatever. They like that. That's their 7 to 10. For you, you're like, that's a 2. I hate that stuff. So you find Pat who loves it, and you say, Pat, I got something for you. And I look at it and go, holy cow, Kevin gave me a 10. He gave me a 10 to work on. I'm happy. You've just delegated to me. And I don't look at it as, oh, Kevin just put this on my desk. Kevin just dumped on me. I'm like, wow, my boss gives me so many 10s to work on. I'm now happier in my day. So that's the proper alignment. And you do that through a strength analysis. And then when you get in my area, I start with four categories, and each one can be subdivided. So leaders, we talk about leaders, they should be good at creating the vision. I don't always agree with that. Some leaders are not really good at looking at raw data, vetting that data and saying, that tells me this story. But some leaders are good at hearing that story, and they can communicate it better than anybody to a group. Or they're better at writing that in a blog, or they're better at presenting that to a shareholder or to a client. So you have to start looking at who's got the strengths, who's got the sweet spots, and are we maximizing? So I look at it like this. We're all running out of time. Time is of the essence. If we believe that, then yes, you want to try to take a weakness and turn it into a strength, but it takes you less time to take a strength and just turn it up. So let's amplify your strengths. I'm not saying ignore your weaknesses, but if time is truly of the essence, take your weakness and give it to somebody else and it's their strength. And then you chain link yourself to these people in a function where this chain link is stronger than the chain itself. So that's my whole idea about strength analysis.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And yeah, I love really identifying people's natural strengths, because that's where their strongest energy is going to live. That's where we're going to produce the highest impact, and they're going to feel the best. And one of the questions I always get asked when I'm working with people on the Strength Finders tool by Gallup is like, almost every time I've taught that to somebody, how do I move up the weaknesses at the bottom? I'm like, well, like you just said, Patrick, it's like there's only so many hours in the day. Like, where do you want to spend time? The things that, take a tremendous amount of energy and don't bring you much, are the things that actually create more energy and you create massive impact, and you could do it all day and you feel great. And I mean, it's a no-brainer.
You could think of it like, I could look at my grandchildren. One has a natural golf swing. One has a natural baseball swing. I'm not going to make them both ball players or golfers. So let's spend the time where it's still swinging something at a ball, but there's different assets that you have to bring into play. So that's the thing is, leaders are smart enough to say who's got strengths around them and not look at it as a threat to their existence. Real effective leaders don't have to swear, don't have to raise their voice. They have to raise the value of their arguments, which is not arguing, and you do that through being strong and knowing their strengths.
Oh, that's great. All right, let's transition towards the last couple of questions I got for you. I know you've got lots going on and coming up too. So what's something coming up that you're really excited about?
Well, so I do this usually every quarter. I've got a 3-day online session, 3 days to clarity. And, it really digs into, 3 weeks to clarity, 3 weeks, not 3 days. And over the span of 3 weeks, so we meet once a week, and then we have one-on-one sessions, and we get some clarity, and it could be your personal life. I mean, I find that when I work with professionals, sometimes it is their personal life. I've had folks who come to me to talk about their business and end up finishing with like you said, their workout program or their fitness or their diet type program. But we go through a breakdown of, what is the clutter that's getting in your way? What is the noise? What are the first steps? Why haven't you taken those first steps? I've got a post online where there's 10 questions you can ask yourself. And I put the questions out there so that you can ask yourself. They're yes or no answers. And if you have 2 yeses to the 10, you probably are someone who operates without much clarity. It would be like me starting to write my book without clarity. I never would have gotten the first book written unless I got some clarity behind who is it for, what will it do, what are they doing with it, what problems is it solving. So that's coming up, and I usually do that about 4 times a year. And so this one is going to be, by the time this comes out, probably already closed for registration. So I would just say that watch my LinkedIn posts. You'll see, when the next one is coming up, and hopefully we'll get some of your listeners to come and attend.
Yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend that, you guys. Also, speaking of LinkedIn, where else can people go to connect with you and find you in addition to LinkedIn?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the best way because I use LinkedIn quite a bit. And there's actually a new group I'm starting called the Business Solutions Group. And it's a co-collaborative environment where people can be. And the other way is just to go to my website, pksolutionsgroup.com. I have a lot of free resources there for folks who want to improve in leadership, in entrepreneurship, in themselves, in sales. So there's a lot of free resources, and there's a lot of resources we talked about, like if people want to get the books are there. So that would probably be the second best place, is pksolutionsgroup.com.
All right, perfect. And speaking of books, what's a favorite book to read, recommend, or give away?
Yeah, I think I really like Sean Akers. He's the author, Big Potential. And it's a really good book. And Sean put some science behind that. Happy people are almost always successful, but successful people aren't always happy. And Big Potential is the first. I don't know if I read them in order, but I read that first. And actually, Happiness Advantage was probably the first one I read of his. That's about the individual. Big Potential is how you take that and you lead from your own seat in the organization. He's got a really good one you could read probably in an afternoon called The Orange Frog. So Sean Akers is the author. I would recommend any one of his reads.
Ooh, cool. Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I'm looking forward to checking those out.
It's really just impactful. It's hard to put it down.
Yeah, cool. What does freedom mean to you here on the Unlock Your Freedom podcast?
Freedom means to me the ability to work the way I want to work, and then to unplug the way I want to unplug. And sometimes it's hard to do that because we tend to stay plugged in. I think we take better care of our cell phones than we do ourselves. And so I think it's important to define both.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I was like, and pretty true. Wow, that was a good mic drop moment right there. Take better care of our cell phones than we do ourselves.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, what's something I could have asked that you'd like to share about that I didn't ask about?
I think the main thing that I could just leave people with is the thought that usually when you find that you have a problem going on, either in your personal life or your professional life, remember, you're the only one who's compartmentalizing it that way. It always comes down to the person. So I'm the same person, whether I'm in my professional role or whether I'm in my personal role. But the problem usually comes down to a lack of strategy, not knowing where you're trying to go, but trying to get busy getting there. And I think that, when people take a step back, which doesn't feel like something you should do, take a step back and look at, where am I trying to go with this? What is the outcome I'm really after? Not what am I doing? We're in such a rush to get to what we're doing that we don't realize that that's really getting us in the right place. So I think that's what I would leave people with is to take a look at your own strategy with what you do before you start moving and getting in motion, because you might end up in the wrong place.
Ooh, well said. Alrighty, you guys, go check out Patrick. He's got a lot to offer. Anybody in sales, anybody in leadership, and really just anybody who's looking to be a better them. Because this stuff, like Patrick just said, it's, whoever I am professionally is who I am personally. Kind of how I do anything is how I do everything. And so if I improve in one area of my life, that improves every other area of my life. So maybe share this out if you found some value in it. Maybe somebody else needs to hear what stood out to you. Thanks for being here with us, you guys. Patrick, thanks for sharing your genius with us again. Really appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Glad to be here. Thanks for getting my books.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for writing them. They were great. So, and also, Veterans Day was last week, but thanks for serving our country and keeping us all safe. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, bye, everybody. Alrighty, you guys, thanks for making it through to the end of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with us. Really grateful to have amazing listeners like you. Thank you guys again for listening. We love you, and we'll see you next time inside the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple.